Slog FPV. Today I wanted to go over the build I just recently did. I was looking for a 3-inch freestyle frame. I've never built one up before. So I did some research and ran across the Ummagawd Acrobrat. It really ticked off all the check boxes that I was looking for. I think the design is very unique. I like the idea of the isolation that this frame provides, keeping the dirty section separate from the clean section, which is where your camera is. So the whole idea is to with these rubber grommets, basically isolate the vibrations coming off the motors, so that it doesn't get into your video feed. So I really like that aspect of it. I like that it's a low deck. I like the fact that there's a substantial amount of space to do the build. I think it's a good beginner drone. Somebody that's new to doing builds, because there's not a lot of assembly. This is just one piece down here, so it is something that is easy to assemble. So overall, I think it's a good frame for a beginner to start with. Also, just the uniqueness of leveraging the RunCam Split Mini. I know that there's a version 2 out here. I just happen to have version 1, which is basically a dual board stack. I know the version 2 of the RunCam Split Mini, there's just one board. So you should probably check that out. I'll put a link below. But overall, I'm very pleased. So the next thing I'm going to go through is the components that I used and the placement of the components. So starting at the front, I actually have a beeper sitting right in here. There's quite a bit of space, so that's where I tucked in the beeper. Again, this is the RunCam Split Mini version 1. Make sure that you orient the USB board connector up at the top, because you don't want it below, because it'll be hard to connect to that. Then moving a little more forward, or I should say to the rear, I use the HGLRC F428 stack. I've used this stack before on previous designs. I have a Catalyst Machine Works build that I did, massive droner, and I actually use this stack. There are some concerns that there's a header that connects the F4 flight controller to the 4-in-1 ESC. There's some concern about that shearing off. I mean, I've on my other build, I've literally broke this frame, and I had no problems with that shearing off on my little massive droner. It has the same sort of design where you have this, except it's a separate piece, and we actually broke that, and the flight controller survived that. So I hit a fence post really hard. So I think that that's really not an issue, as long as you use the screw that runs all the way up the stack. I don't think you're going to have any problems with that header. I like this flight controller. The ESC is 28 amp continuous with 30, I think it's like 35 amp burst. So it's plenty of ESC for the type of motors you're going to be putting on this thing. Next to that, this is where I put my low ESR capacitor, and then my VTX is sitting back here. Normally that's on the top of the stack, but this is a good spot for it because there's a lot of open air here to keep the VTX cool. So this is a real slick design. You don't have to use this VTX. You could probably use a different VTX. But for me, it works out fine. Let's see. Why don't we go ahead and talk about the Brain3d Accessory Kit that I got. I think it's well worth the $18. It's a great company. You get this front cowling, which I wanted to protect the camera. You also get these rubber landing pads, which I like. Then these serve two purposes. They serve a landing pad purpose, but also you get some additional vibration isolation from the motors. So I think overall that also helps. let's see, then on the back, it also comes with something to mount your antenna, your VTX antenna. I went with the AXXII Stubby. I don't do a lot of long distance flights, so you can get different configurations. I happen to get the one that works well with the Stubby. Then also, you know, you can get these antenna tubes. That's where I've been running my diversity. So what I'm using for my receiver, I'm using the FrSky R-XSR because I wanted telemetry. So it's sitting underneath, basically on top of the stack here. So overall, you know, I was really happy the way this build ended up. The only thing that else is, you know, kind of aftermarket is that I printed out this XT60 connector from Thingiverse. So thanks to the person that uploaded that design. I think it makes it a real clean design because you can plug it in right here and it keeps it out of the props. So again, I'll link that below. The other thing, the Ummagawd, you know, the designer only recommends you only use about half of the Ummagawd. I understand the concept there. You know, what you're trying to do is make sure that the battery is really stable on top here, because you really want it to actually attach directly to the clean section of the frame. The idea, you don't want to get any vibrations from the battery wobbling around into the video feed. But I'm happy to say, you know, I was erring, since I'm, you know, more of a novice pilot. I wanted to err on the side of more surface area because I figure I'm going to be crashing a lot. So I went with the full Ummagawd pad. But I'm happy to say I didn't seem to impact the video at all. So I think overall this frame design is great. Let's see, is there anything else here? I think that's probably it. It's just a pretty basic design here. Oh, I forgot to mention the motors that I'm using. These are the HGLRC 1407 3600 kV motors. These are popular motors. You know, you see that on the XJB 145. I know that people think that this motor is probably underpowered because this is a little heavier frame. But for me, where I'm at, you know, I'm more of a novice. I want to get better at freestyle. So for me, it's learning throttle control. I don't need a lot of punch out. I just need something that's smooth, and I really don't want something that's going to overpower my current piloting skills. So for me, this motor worked out great. Coupled with the battery here, I'm using a GNB 850 milliamp hour battery. I was getting a good 4 minutes of flight time with that. Of course, you know, again, I'm not a hot rod, but you know, that's doing flips and punch outs, and I think it did quite well. And when I landed on my maiden flight, the motors were cool. I mean, it was not hot at all. So for me, the motors are plenty fine for where I'm at. Again, if you're a better pilot than myself, probably should go with bigger motors. But if you're a novice beginner, this worked out fine for me. So what I'm going to go into next is how to wire this thing up with the stack that I'm using, and then also you know, how I wired up the RunCam Split Mini. If you're not interested in that, you know, thanks for watching the video. But I think the documentation for the RunCam Split Mini is not that good. So and then also, you know, you have to play some tricks, because the one downfall of this stack is it doesn't have a lot of UART. So again, I had to use I use soft serial. So I'll go into how I configured things. So thanks for watching, and at the very end of the video, I do have a flight where I'm just you know, slow, smooth flight, so you guys can see how well, you know, this frame works in isolating the the DVR, video capture from the dirty section of the frame. I was not getting any micro vibration, so I highly recommend this frame. I think it's a great design. So this part of the video, I'm going to go over the R-XSR and how you wire that up, as well as the RunCam Split Mini. Starting off with the R-XSR, this is your ground that's going to be connected to the ground pad that's on the flight controller, as well as the 5 volt is going to be connected to the 5 volt pad, just like the wiring diagram shows that you get. Then also the S-Bus is connected to the S-Bus pad, so all that's pretty normal. The thing that's a little bit different, I'm going to be leveraging the PPM pad up here at the top for telemetry information, which is basically your S port. So this is going to become your soft serial port going into the flight controller. So again, that's connected up to the PPM pad here. So you're using soft serial to emulate a UART, essentially. That's a hardware function. So soft serial is basically the emulation of a hardware function in software. So now we need to go to the Betaflight configurator. What you're going to do is you're going to want to type in resource serial underscore TX11B14. The 11 is the first digit here is soft serial, saying this is a soft serial port. The second digit, or the one here, means that it's soft serial port 1. So you could have 11, 12, 13, and so on. You're connecting it to B14, which is the really the PPM pad that we're not using. So I'm allocating the soft serial pad for telemetry information. Basically, you're connecting that to pad B14 that typically is used for PPM. So with that, you just hit return, and then you'll hit save. I'm not going to do that because I'm already configured. But again, the command's pretty simple here. It's just resource space serial underscore TX11 space B14. After that, what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to go over to the configuration tab, and you're going to turn on soft serial. Then what you're going to do is you're going to go to the ports tab, and you're going to set up your smart port, which is telemetry output column. So soft serial 1 will show up after you enabled it, and again you're going to pick smart port, and that's it. So now we'll go into how you wire up your VTX and the RunCam Split Mini. So this is how I wired up my VTX and the RunCam Split Mini. What you're going to do is your OSD control. I have it wired up to TX6, which is your IRC tramp protocol. It's going to be going to the 4th pin in. If you look at the silk screen here, it's shifted to the left, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, which is equivalent to 1, 2, 3, 4, or OSD underscore RX is the pin that you're connecting to. Then for the camera control, I'm using TX3 on the flight controller, which is going to go up to the RX pad on the RunCam Split Mini board. That's on the top of your stack with the USB port on it. So basically, again, you're going to be connecting TX3 to RX pad on the camera, and then the TX pad is going to be going to the RX3 pad on the flight controller. Then as far as the other pads, 5 volts is going to go to the 5 volt pad here. It's a Beck. And then the camera is going to go to the video pad on the camera. And then ground, of course, goes to the ground pad. So pretty easy setup. don't use the 5-volt output over here on the VTX as a back or 5 volts for this camera. Yeah, it does look like it has enough current capability to power this, but the VTXs always run really hot, and you'll get a thermal crowbar if you were to do that. It'd just get too hot. So don't do that. Just connect it to the again, to the 5-volt back output here that's designed for cameras. And this is the wiring diagram that I'll link below so that you have access to that, and then the XSR receiver diagram that I showed you earlier. So next we're going to go into the configurator, and this happens to be how I set up the switches. I just followed the instructions that you get with the RunCam Split Mini, but then you're going to need to go to the ports tab, and for the UART6 IRC tramp connection, basically as far as peripherals, you set that to IRC tramp, and then UART3 is your RunCam control, so you're going to select that. Then you're going to do a save and reboot. I'm not going to do that because I've already configured it, but again, it's pretty simple configuration, and with this I'm able to control, you know, the DVR, you know, turning it on and off. Some people just like leaving it on all the time, or just you know, pushing the button to get it to record and stop. I don't particularly like that. I like the switches, so this is how I set things up. So I'll have a quick short video to kind of show the video quality of the DVR. I was quite pleased with that, so thanks for watching.